so, I'll be brief and share, save time for others. But one of the things that I learned early on as a trained social worker with domestic affairs, period, was one to be careful in the assessment of it, because a lot of times when you are called in, I was usually called in and on behalf of the child and making sure that child was in a safe environment. And one of the things I found very interesting was, to really hear the underlying story, because there's his story, her story, and the true story. So you have to be very careful in listening and hearing, making sure you hear what you think you hear. The other thing is looking at the situation long terms, because 9 times out of 10, even after you've been there, assess what's going on, by the time you come back, the whole story has changed. And the persons you thought were worst enemies are now best friends.
Mm.
So what you may want to recommend may not be what they want. So the number one thing is to understand and assess what is it we want out of what we now have on hand.
Okay,
Okay.
great answer. I want to just add to that. The main thing you want to, the top of the list, if you go down the hierarchy, the top of the list is safety. So you want to make sure that before you even discuss domestic violence, if the partner is there, you do not want to discuss anything with that perpetrator. We call him perpetrator, with the perpetrator in the room, with this lady. If she was brought, let's say the scenario was she was brought into the hospital and she's bruised. So
Mhm.
the man or the perpetrator, the husband or whoever is there with her. 9 times out of 10, that lady is terrified. She's
Mhm.
not going to want to talk. She's not going to want to say anything in front of him. So you want to make sure that it's a secure environment for her. You want to make sure that, no further harm is going to come to her. Number one, if she decides to leave with that person, because I ran into a situation at when I worked at St. Vincent's Hospital. The person that I was helping was the lady, and the husband was there, and the nurses were terrified of him because he was, really irate and all the different things that were going on. But at the same time, I was able to have someone remove him out of the room so that I could talk to the lady, the client, the patient rather, to get her input on what did she want to happen. What is it that you want me to do now that you're in a safe environment? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because if you say that in front of the perpetrator, first of all, he's going to be offended and mad, and his secret is out, right? So he's going to be irate, and then at the same time, she's going to shut down. So you want to make sure you assess, like Charlotte said, you want to make sure you assess the situation. And this particular case that I was working on, it took me about 6 hours to talk to this lady. And at the same time, different things were happening because I had the charge nurse call the police. And so, because the lady did want to press charges at the beginning, she did want
Mhm.
to press charges, and bless her heart, mouth was wired together. He broke her jaw, and he said she fell on the heater, and that wasn't the case. He literally beat her. So I found all this out, but at the same time, after 6 hours of talking to this lady, getting them separated and everything that I had to do, she decided to go back home with him, because there's,
Mhm.
oh, and I know the chief will probably say that is, and Miss Moncrief will say that's probably something that actually happens, because as social workers, we give the client or the patient, we give them the right to self-determination. As you guys know, we always ask them, what do you want? us to do for you? What would you want me to help you with? You know, I could have told her, you know, in my personal opinion, let me get you out of this and don't you ever go back again. You know,
Yeah.
but that's not what we do. We want to assess, we want to make sure that person is safe, and then at the same time we want to make sure that we are doing what the client wants, you know. And so, but at the end of the day, it's their decision.
And I know,
Okay.
we
Yes,
don't,
ma'am, Miss Charlotte.
yes, I was about to say, I know we don't want to belittle one point,
Mhm.
move on and get to others, but we don't know who is watching. And I just wanted to
Right.
point out that in my 30, 40 years of social work, just want to make it clear. You may hear us say her or the woman a lot, but
Mhm.
sometimes we find there are just as many men who
Right.
suffer an abuse as it is women. So we
Right.
don't want to make it sound one-sided or biased because
Mhm.
most of us are women. So Chief, we don't want it to sound like we are always the victim, but we do want to give a good, because usually the majority of the time it is females, and that's why we tend to lean that way. But like I said, we don't know who this will help or who's watching, and it's
Right.
universal because
Right.
there are times, and I have seen when it was the man that was being abused. Domestic
Right.
abuse don't care who it is and what color they are, where they live, and what status they are. It doesn't care.
Right.
I just
And
want
one
to say
and
that.
another thing I wanted to mention is that I provided, and this scenario that I was telling you all about is just an example. I provided the patient with every resource that I could think of that she could take with her, so that whenever she got home, if she decided to leave, she had phone numbers, she had all kinds of contact crisis line numbers, she had local people that she could reach out to so that she could get out of the situation, you know, if that's what she wanted to do. And if she needed to do that immediately, she had those resources. So I definitely provided her with everything that she needed.
Okay, I wanted to jump in right quick. A question for Chief Williams. Um, Kind of piggybacking off what Miss Jennifer said about the resources. Do you find that when officers are going out on calls, is it more harmful leaving resources than it is safe?
No, I think you can. Officers have they do a good job of leaving resources, giving places where you can go, like one place or
Mhm,
Family Sunshine Center and everything like that.
mhm,
Especially in the domestic violence situation,
mhm,
when we usually respond to a domestic, sometimes it comes across the radio, or it can come on the computer or whatnot. This may be a domestic violence situation.
mhm,
You have to be real sensitive and real careful, uh,
mhm.
because you don't know, how traumatized is the victim.
Yeah.
So, when we do leave pamphlets and we do leave resources and stuff like that to
Mhm.
what, you can get help, but it's up to the victim to step out on faith and say, you know what, I'm gonna
Mhm,
walk away from this. And like
mhm.
Miss Charlotte said, and Miss Jennifer can attest to this as well, victims usually go back to the abuser.
Yeah. They do
And
say it takes 7 to 21 times before they actually leave, and
right,
that's for the ones who do, and then some never leave. So that's
exactly.
Right.
And it's
Right.
and I can say I've been in law enforcement 7 years, and through my 7 years of law enforcement, I never forget this case. This woman, she was trying so hard to get away from
mhm,
her husband, and
mhm,
first it started off as domestic violence harassment with a
Mm.
simple push. Then it escalated to domestic violence assault. With her arm being broken and her black and eye and nose being broken. Then it turned into domestic violence murder.
mhm,
Mm.
And so
mhm,
that's what people, when they say they want to get away, we
mhm,
urge them. I plead with them. Hey, look, you're better than this situation. This doesn't define you. You can walk away. It takes courage. It takes strength, but you do not have to be involved in this situation at all. And you know, some people are just, they're terrified and they're scared, and she was scared.
And Chief Williams, I want to say, definitely, when I understand the, hey, convincing to leave, because I've been there. Met the person I was with at 13. We stayed in a relationship 17 years. And one of the things that I try to get people to understand that even in convincing them to leave, one, it has to be their choice and they have to have the opportunity to make that choice, but also understanding that fear is real. And, you know, some people think, you know, it just leave, you know, it's easy when you're not in that situation to say, hey, I urge you to do this, I urge you to do this, but you've been conditioned so long where the fear of them is realer than the fear of someone, of believing someone's going to help them. And so sometimes, you know, you may say, well, you know, I try all I can, but until they are to that trust is built up and they understand that this person truly wants to help and they truly want to leave, it's not that they're not taking the advice. It's just that, you know, you can arrest that person, take them to court, they get sentenced to 10 years. But until that individual deals with the fear that kept them there, they'll still operate as if they were in that relationship, even when that person is gone. So even law enforcement and dealing with counselors and social work, understanding that is the desire to go is there, but that fear is a lot of the things that keep them, because, you know, if you leave, I'll kill you. Because for me, I stayed 5 years longer than I wanted to when I made up my mind that I wanted to leave, because I allowed fear to come in. And, you know, basically the enemy was saying you're safer if you stay. You leave, he may try to kill you. He may try to stalk you. You know, those are the thoughts. And so I allowed the fear of those thoughts that I allowed to come into my mind to keep me there 5 years longer. And I thank God that I did make it out, because it was either I was going to take my life or that person was, because that's just how fed up I was, you know, however. And so I wanted to just kind of share that, you know, even people who deal with this on a daily basis, it's not that they like it and they want to be there, but that underlying that fear is gripped them to the point it caused them to be stagnant. And it'll take a lot, because I had to make up in my mind, Lord, whatever has to happen is just going to happen, but I'm walking away. But when I walked away, it didn't happen as the enemy tried to magnify it in my mind. It didn't happen that way. And I can say today, it's been almost 12 years this year that I walked away and I haven't gone back. And so that's why I like to talk to people in the community, because part of our vision is to educate the community, empower victim or survivor to end repeat victimization. And as much as we want to eliminate it, we may not, but if we provide the empowerment and the education about what it is, and we also educate those who, you know, officers, social workers, doctors, you know, people who come into contact on why they stay, you know, and it goes deeper than they just want to be loved. It goes deeper than that. And so we want, for me, for Women of Refined Gold, I want individuals to understand it on a different level than what we know, the textbook, or what we learn, or, you know, we go out because, hey, I hadn't been through it, so I have my own opinion about it, but that people are fully educated from. And so for me, I'm not telling people about something that I read about, I'm telling people about something that I live. And so being able to understand the mindset will go a long way with even trying to help individuals to come out of those situations.
Because I want to just add to that, you know, even any person that you deal with that's in a domestic violence situation, it's life or death for them. You know, it doesn't matter you know, if you're in the grocery store or whatever, if that person is in a domestic violence situation, I was actually, you want to do all you can to get that person some help. I was actually at a Cracker Barrel years ago, and I just, as social workers, this is what I learned when I was in school. One of my professors said that we have social worker written on the top of our heads. No matter where you go, somebody's going to tell you their life story. And I promise you, I have found that to be so true. And Charlotte probably can say the same thing. I mean, honestly, I was sitting there and I was just eating whatever. The lady said, ma'am, what can I do to help my friend? And she told me all this stuff about this lady that was in this domestic violence situation. And she was afraid that the guy was going to kill the lady. And so, you know, I was able to tell her that the first thing you need to do is, if she comes to you, you call the police. That's the very first thing that you do. You don't go try to stop them. You don't go try to intervene, you know, or try to talk to the guy or whatever, because you might know him. And I was actually another situation in my apartment when I was years ago. I heard someone upstairs just, it was, and I know it was a domestic violence situation because things were just flying across the room and the lady was screaming. It was a lady again. And the guy, he was raising his voice and they were fighting. So I did not go knock on the door. But as a social worker, we are mandatory reporters. So we have to report any type of injury to a person that we witness. So I did. I called the police. And, you know, even if that person does not want to say who this is, you know, I'm so-and-so, you know, and I don't know, Chief, do they have to give their names or can they just anonymously call?
No, you can anonymously call.
Okay, yes. So that's what I told the girl at Cracker Barrel, and you know, and then I said to her, "You will be saving this lady's life if you make the phone call." And sure enough, you know, the situation within my apartment when I made the phone call, the police officer, because I told him who I was underneath the guy, you know, underneath the couple. And so he knocked on the door after they arrested the guy and took him out and called the ambulance for the lady. He knocked on the door and he told me, he said, ma'am, you saved her life. He said, you saved her life. You know, and at the same time, I was shaking because it was horrible to hear that, you know. And so imagine what it's like for the lady getting beat to death, you know, and as social workers, your job and your role is to make sure you step in and do all you can to help that person, to help them, because a lot of times their mind is clouded. You know, they're like, oh, I love him so, but he beat me, broke my arm or whatever. And then when that person comes in front of you, you want to assess the situation and let them talk to you about why they're staying. You know, why do they want to continue to get this cycle of abuse happen to them? Why? What is it that's keeping them? And to put another thing into the equation is children. You know, if you got a lady that's not working and that man is supporting her and her children, and he's also an abuser, there's another part to that puzzle that she just can't walk away. She got 5 mouths to feed. You know, and it always had, you know, everyone has a story, and then there's a lot more to the picture than what you actually see. So you want to ask questions and you want to get them to talking to you. You know, you want to build that rapport so that they feel comfortable enough to talk to you. But again, like I said at the beginning, do not talk to them if the man is in the room, or do not talk to the woman or the guy if the abuser is a woman, if she's in the room. You want to always separate them.
Okay. Deja, Tamara, do you all have another question?
How could
Yes.
you detect the client? Like how would you know, like for instance, like you was saying, like you was in the hospital and like a lady got abused by her husband or a boyfriend, but how would you know if it was a domestic violence relationship? Like, how
That
would
is
you let that
definitely my
person
question.
learn how to trust you enough to
Hey,
open up?
Tamira,
Yes.
hold on one second. What did you say, Deja?
I was saying that was definitely my question. My question was, when assessing a potential domestic violence situation, what factors classify that particular situation as domestic violence? What would make it domestic violence as opposed to like a regular assault?
Can we hear from Chief Williams first on that, and then Miss Charlotte?
Well, anytime the statute states in the state of Alabama that if you are in a relationship, it changed over the years. It just recently changed. So if you, let's say you have a child in common with the person, that's domestic violence. If you've been in a long-term relationship with the person, that's domestic violence. If you had sexual intercourse repeatedly with that person, whether y'all not in a relationship, y'all just, booty call, that's domestic violence. So the statute has changed. Brother, mother against son, father against son, daughter versus mother, that's domestic violence as well. Am I right, Miss Charlotte, on that?
You're definitely.
That's the statute. If I'm leaving anything out, please enlighten me also. But that's what I know of as of today. That's what equates as domestic violence. Now, each state is different, but when it comes to the state of Alabama, that's what we recognize as domestic violence. So you can be, if you can talk to someone, and I hate to bring this up. We had Montgomery Police Department lost an officer this past summer, if y'all remember. And she moved on with her life and everything, and she was a good woman. And her ex-boyfriend murdered her. So that's domestic violence. That would equate. Even though she moved on with her life, he moved on with his life, he came back and murdered her. So my take on that, and I just want to speak to y'all, and I done been in some domestic violence situations in myself, growing up in a domestic violence household. I just want everyone to be very cautious of the person that you date. Really take the time out, get to know that person thoroughly, because everyone changed. My mom told me before you marry someone, and I heard Tyler Perry say this also, make sure you date them 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Because at the end of the day, they all, you're gonna see them in their broke season, in their rich season, their happy season, and they miserable season, whatever season they in. Make sure you get to know that person, and just do your research on that person also. It won't help to do it wouldn't hurt, I'm sorry, to do a background check on the person that you date, because you never know. I'm just being honest with you.
That's true.
That's good. And I would agree with Chief Williams. One is that domestic means anybody that has had any kind of relationship or related to anybody in any way that make it domestic, meaning it's in-house. It's in-house. A lot of people think that it can't be domestic if it's not if they're not married to them, or if they don't know them or whatever. But if they've spent any time with them, to say they have any kind of relationship with them, then that's the difference in that. And I guess I'm always looking at the big picture, which is like Chief said, in today's world, it probably look a lot different than it did when I first started social work in the 70s. And a lot different in that, like right now in the pandemic season, everybody nerves is on edge. Everybody, a lot of people you meet, and they just don't know what to do with their emotions. So you find even a lot of people who have been doing well as husband and wives, or as girlfriend and boyfriend, or whatever. Now they are just like Chief said, in a different season. If this was a season where my job was doing good and I was making good money and we didn't have no bills and everything was well, it may have been different. But now I see the real you when your job has shut down. We don't have enough food in the house. These children are not in school like they normally would be. So we got a lot of things coming at us.
Mhm.
And those things come out in different ways.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I learned even early on that I think goes through the thread of social work, we as social workers, almost like Christians, we have to remember that our situation or every situation is not the same.
Mhm.
And we have to also be able to remove our personal and our individual feelings
Yes.
from a situation in order to assist. Because if I'm a smoker and I'm trying to help somebody stop smoking, it's going to be the worst thing in the world. I'm going to tell them all the bad stuff about it. I'm going to tell them how it's going to kill them, every bad thing about it. However, when I was a smoker, I didn't see that.
Mhm.
So we got to remember that one, we take our personal opinions because your opinion don't matter. Like Jennifer even said, you can tell me all day long what he's gonna do to me, but you are not
Mhm.
when he's bringing me that $10 or $15 to go get a loaf of bread and some bologna.
Mhm.
And there again, that goes back to resources. I
Mhm.
can talk to you all day, but what can I do tangibly to help you? I can tell you what's wrong. I can tell you how to fix it. But what do I have to tangibly offer you to help fix
Yes.
it?
Right.
But
Mhm.
see, I'm not going to be there 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock that night. You
Mhm.
come in knocking on your head if you say the wrong thing,
Mhm.
or vice versa. So those are the things that as social workers, we have to take into consideration and understand that we're just a tool to help assess what's
Mhm.
going on and help them in making the decision that they want to make sure that the resources we have to offer are valid resources.
Yes.
So many
Yes.
times we'll tell people, well, so and so is there to help you. They go to them, well, we don't have any funding right now, or
Mhm.
we're not helping anymore, or we don't
Mhm.
have anything to offer. That's why a lot of times as a social worker, when I refer somebody, I will call the people before I refer them.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
that's the other thing. A lot of times resources get so many people coming at them that are not legit.
Exactly.
Like they make up stuff just like a clothing closet or food pantry or whatever. People just everybody in the world are not Christians and everybody's not out for the good. So
Mhm.
sometimes those that are not out for the good make it hard for those that really need it. So, people have to jump over all kind of turtles, as they call it, go through all kind of questions and this and that before they can get something. If somebody is in a dire need and it's an emergency, they want help right then. They
Right.
don't have time to answer 25, 35, 40 questions, fill out 50 forms, all of that. They just want some help. And I understand we live in a world, like I said, where everybody's not truthful, everybody's not honest, and everybody don't have integrity, which makes it hard for those who do. But as social workers, those are things that we have to help them muddle through and sometimes step out front as professionals to
Right.
say, Miss So-and-so, I'm referring such and such a person to you. This is what they need without divulging their whole life story. Just stick to what they're there for, and that will be a good thing for you. Also, I'm going to throw in here, and we may get to this confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time people tell you stuff, and it may be some juicy stuff, but you have to be very careful that you're not sharing it with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. We had a policy, especially with rehab and with the state, that if there's not a need to know, then you don't talk about it. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter how good it is. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. And sometimes people tell you stuff or stuff that is so closely related to something you've experienced. You in your head is thinking about, oh my God, how do I
Mhm.
never ever remember let anybody share with you or you are doing an assessment that oh my God, I can't believe that. That put you automatically in an opposite position to be able to help you because they feeling like, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. That's just the tip of the
Mhm.
iceberg.
Mhm.
So you have to really remember, stay, stay, stay objectively or just as a listener
Mhm.
and try to always remain optimistic with them that
Okay.
it can get better. But only
Mhm.
That's right.
if you know what they
It's funny.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Ms.
it's funny that you
Charlotte.
mentioned.
Hold on one second. Ms. Charlotte, thank you. You can talk in just a minute, Deja. I was piggybacking off of Mr. Chief Williams when he said, getting to know the people, because growing up, they may have grown up in where the society where it was okay to beat your wife. And so the rule of thumb was if the stick was not bigger or bigger than your thumb, you could beat your wife. So if you have an individual that's been raised up off of that theory or that's true, then more than likely they've been taught that over the years. So when they get into a relationship, it's okay for them to do it. So I do agree. We don't do it enough, but we must understand their background, because one of the things we talked about is we think love means the same thing for each person. Like you automatically know, but what I have learned what love may be different from what you learn. So, sometimes you bump heads and say, well, why you don't do this and why you don't show me love like this? But the way they were shown love may have been totally different from the way you were shown love. So truly understanding their background. Go ahead, Deja.
Ms. Charlotte, it was funny that you mentioned confidentiality, because we had an assignment yesterday regarding the NASW Code of Ethics, and I wrote mine on breaching confidentiality with minors. So what would be your take on that situation, like breaching the confidentiality with minors in reference to like telling their parents of what's going on with them?
Well, first of all, we go back to, like Jennifer said, especially if it's a minor, you're thinking about safety. So when it comes to safety, confidentiality is out the door. Even though you don't want to put them in a harmful situation, you want to make sure you're sharing their information with a resource that can intervene, that can help. For instance, I remember I had well, she wasn't even a teenager. Well, you may say she was 12 or 13. And at the time she found herself pregnant, because I worked with the unwed mothers. That was one of my first assignments as a young social worker, young like you guys. And so I was thinking about my first thought, and my first question was, do your mom know? And of course she didn't. That's why she was talking to me and letting me know. Then my next thing was, okay, where does the father fit in? Who is the father? Because there again, somebody beside her knew she was pregnant. And so when it comes to confidentiality, you want to look at the need to know. Who has the need to know and why? Why do they have a need to know? Because what are you going to get from sharing that information? Okay. But remember, like I said, when it comes to safety and it comes to children, then that's out the door, because you want to make sure, first of all, that they are safe and they are in a situation where they will be safe. Now, if she was in fear of her life, or what her parents would think of her, or what they would do. So then and even especially with a 12 or 13-year-old, it wouldn't make sense for me to say, okay, what do you want me to do? What's she gonna say? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Who you want me to do? I don't know. Nobody.
Right.
Nobody.
You can't just keep
you was
between
gonna
us.
tell me.
Exactly.
I thought that's why I came to you.
Exactly. And so as a social worker, those are things we have to have thought about even before going into the situation, how we're going to handle it, and be honest with them. If you got to tell somebody else, or is somebody else you have to discuss this with, don't say, well, you can tell me, I ain't gonna tell nobody. That's a no. Don't ever tell anybody. You can tell me, I'm not gonna tell anybody, because you just put yourself in a situation where whatever they tell you, then you become a liar, or you breach confidentiality when you tell it, because they tell you in confidence. So you may even want to tell them up front. Now, depending on what you tell me as a professional, I have a responsibility. Tell them what your responsibility is, because as a good social worker, and when you've done it long enough, you can read between the lines. I don't have to tell you that I'm in a domestic, or I'm in a violent situation, either emotionally or physically. Once you begin to see and hear the telltale signs, then that helps you. And then you know the right questions to ask so that when you share it or when you write up your assessment, you're not telling something that they told you, you're telling something you knew from what they told you. But you always want to confirm if you're doing that, that what you're thinking and the way you're wording it is actually what they are saying.
Okay.
Man.
The-
And I'm sorry, Ms. Moncrief.
No, I was just gonna say, do you have a question for Chief Williams? Because it's 1:20. We want to be able to wrap up and let all of them have a closing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chief, I was looking for the question. If assigned a domestic violence case, what would be the procedure or protocol to resolve the issue?
All right, repeat your question one more time so I can make sure I understand it.
If assigned a domestic violence case, what would be the procedure or the protocol to solve or resolve the issue?
Okay, so it'll be an investigation that'll take place. First, you make contact with the victim, and they'll tell you what happened. Then the second step is an initial report that will be taken, and it depends on whether the case is a misdemeanor or a felony. It will be assigned to an investigator, after the investigation, you collect the evidence, you get the statements, and after that, it just depends. If it's a misdemeanor, you're going to put pretty much municipal court. But if it's a felony, then the case will go to be prepared for grand jury. And upon grand jury, they can issue an indictment, whether they have probable cause to arrest the offender, that person that committed the domestic violence. And it takes time for a trial, and I can't speak on how long will it take, but it takes time for a trial, and then after you go to trial, you'll have your conviction, or the outcome, the verdict.
One question.
So
Can you tell us can you give us one example of one primary indication between a misdemeanor and a felony? I mean,
Yes, that was my question.
That was your question. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so a misdemeanor would, okay, let's just say it's different classes, class C, class B, class A misdemeanors. Just like it is felonies, it's class D, C, B, A. And your A is the very, significant misdemeanors. And they like them the big dogs, just like a class A felony. So domestic violence, harassing communication. I would call you and I say, you my girlfriend, and I say, I'm gonna beat I threaten you or something like that. Well, that's harassing communication. That's one part of it. You have to tell me, well, don't call me again, leave me alone. If you do that and I call back and I say, I don't give, I'm gonna beat you, that's domestic violence, harassment communication. If we are, together and we're at the mall or somewhere or at the house and I push you and you fall or whatever, but you don't skin it, you don't hurt yourself, that can be called domestic violence harassment. Or I threaten your life just in person. That's domestic violence harassment. So that would be a class C misdemeanor. Yeah, them the two I know very much. Class A would be like, you got your murders, you got your assault first.
Man, I make them a felon.
Yeah, that's felon. That's what I'm talking about. Class A felony. Assault first, your murders, stuff like that.
What does strangulation fall in it?
It would be a class B.
Okay.
Now here's the key part.
If they lose conscience.
If they lose conscience, that's the part.
Okay.
I can strangle you all day, but if you still alert and awake, then you ain't got this domestic violence strangulation. But if you lose conscience, like you go to sleep or something, there you go.
Okay.
So that would be a class B, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Be felony. That's a felony. Felony.
I really have enjoyed this conversation. Just, you know, being able to share this information with individuals. I had problems with streaming to Facebook, but I did stream it to YouTube, and we're going to post it on Facebook.
Cool.
But I do think it's so important that we have these conversations, because a lot of times individuals don't know where to go. You know, some people may say, well, it's common sense, but someone used the word, you in a fog, and you just not thinking clearly. So to be able to, as an officer, to be able to provide information and resources, it goes a long way with the victim, whether it's male or female, that they come in contact with, because then they're going to think they're actively trying to help me get help. And then as a social worker, it's so important, because the social worker wear many hats. It's not just that, hey, this is this. I got to figure out, it may be food, because I may have to just deal with the basic stuff before we can even deal with the domestic violence. And so it's so important. And like Ms. Tsharin mentioned about when you are just in that situation, sometimes you don't want to baby them, but sometimes at the beginning you have to kind of direct them, because sometimes you say, well, call here, and they call and don't get what they need, they get frustrated, so nothing happens. So if they see that the individual that they're working with is going that extra mile to make sure they get connected to the right resources, then they are building that trust with the individual, and they're more than likely to follow through when they get information, when they get referrals. Even for officers, we know they have so much going on, and you know, but just taking that 1 second to not be frustrated, to not be so focused on one area that you are not focused on, that goes a long way, because then they're saying, well, this officer really cares. They're paying attention to my concerns, and they're not trying to say, okay, we're going to get to you, trying to brush you off. Domestic violence is just one of those things that you have to have patience. I mean, you got to have, I mean, patience like no other, because people may not respond. They may not get the help they need. They may only call you when something goes on, you know, but being able to realize that it is a problem, but the way you respond goes a long way. You know, I've been doing Women Over Fire and Gold. This year's going on 8 years. And what I realized, just taking the time to sit down to listen, and Miss Jennifer said, figuring out the underlying issue, you know, don't look at what's happening right now, but sometimes you got to go back to what leads up to these things. And so for Women Over Fire and Gold, our biggest part is understanding the root of it, because the symptoms are just the byproduct of the major issue. And so, you know, one of the things that we try to do is be that organization that is not just about, we want to get in your business. It's not just about, hey, okay, I'll give you somewhere to stay for a day or two and that's it. It's to be a relationship, because they've been isolated. They've been told, you know, no one wants to deal with you. No one wants to. So you have to build back up that trust, build back up that confidence. And Chief Williams, one of the biggest things that I've been trying to do is really to connect with the police departments, to be able to be that advocate that says, you know, when we refer out, we'll be a referral source for the police officer, or coming in providing education and training to officers so that they are better able to understand the mindsets, not from where they just go out and they only see them for maybe 10, 15 minutes, but really to understand it so that when they go back out on a call, they're able to see from a different lens. And so I definitely would love to speak more with you about how can we do more community awareness, more, you know, provide some education, whatever that looks like, because we know the rural area are the least to with referrals. And so they definitely have to come come to Montgomery. They may not have access to get here, but we definitely want to be a partner with whatever you all are doing when it's surrounding domestic violence. One of the things I say, the more we create awareness, the more individuals know someone cares. The more we keep quiet, the more they're gonna keep quiet because they don't feel like no one's talking about it. So why will I go talk to someone about it? So we got to bring awareness. We got to make it loud. We got to let victims know that someone does care. And so, you know, we try to provide that support to community agencies, churches. We've gone out and talked to social workers, you know, so they are able to understand when they connect with individuals, they know of resources in the community. So I wanted to just, if you all have any last words, you all could go ahead and say it, and then we'll end with our interns with whatever last words that they have.
Well, I just want to say finally that I want to get to share. I've been out of the on hand social work for a minute, and then was a supervisor for like 30 something years, and been retired about 8. It's so good to touch back bases in the community, grassroots, to see and know that there's so much going on. I've been working, I'm on the board, my sister with the Swans, and they are a non-profit organization that tries to help women find the best, get the what they want out of life. And then I was reminded when you was talking to Sharon, she just did a book on Married to Fear, when you was talking about being
Mm.
and not knowing who to tell, what to tell, how to tell, or whatever. But in that book, she mentioned how, like you said, sometimes you don't even see it as abuse. If that's what you're used to, you
Mhm.
don't even know that you're being abused
Mhm.
until you're in it so deep that you realize this is not the norm. And depending on how
Mhm.
you're feeling and where you are in life, where can I reach out? First of all, you got to get past that embarrassment of wanting anybody to
Mhm.
know. And, who do I
Mhm.
tell? And if I tell them, who are they going to tell? So she talks about how
Mhm.
to be able to write that book, Married to Fear. Here it is, some 20 plus years later, that she can be released from what she felt for so many years of not knowing which way to go and what it was going to be like after that. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I think this is such a very intimate and intense topic. We could never cover it all in 30 minutes, but I pray
Mhm.
that if there are women or men or children out there that see this and hear it, that if we don't say anything else, the one thing we would say to you is find somebody, get help from somewhere. If you feel like it's getting to be too late, or you've been in it too long, or you don't know what to do, or you don't want your family embarrassed, you don't want people to know what you're going through, whatever, it's gonna come out sooner or later. So I pray that it be
Mhm.
sooner than later. And again, thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Well, I am just so happy to be here. And you two ladies, Deja and Tamira, y'all are basically hearing what we've been talking about, especially with the iceberg effect. Remember what I was talking about that the other day to you guys. So I just want to say to anyone out there that is in a domestic violence situation, just to echo what Charlotte was saying, there is help available. You can get help, and you're not alone. You're not alone. And to anyone out there who's witnessing someone that is basically getting abused, like I said earlier, you can save that person's life by making a phone call, by
Yes.
helping them, by helping them get the help that they need. And I'm telling you, it makes a difference, because you don't want, and especially social workers that are coming going through school right now, I want to just put this out there. You want to know what the code of ethics says about your job. You want to know everything. It's like being a sponge. You want to soak it all in, know what you're doing, know what to say, know when to say it, because you are that person in front of you. Who knows? Just like Chief said earlier, you know, that may be the last time you talk to them, because they may die after they leave your office. And I don't mean to sound gruesome, but it is true. And your job is very important as being a social worker, and even in the helping field. You know, like I said, you are a mandatory reporter. So you have to know what you're supposed to be doing. Understand that this is life or death. When you're talking about domestic violence, you want to make sure that you keep people alive. You know, you be the one to say, let me help you. You know, here are the resources that you need. And as a matter of fact, if you want me to help you, I will. Because sometimes that's all they need to hear. You know, they just need to that reaffirming voice telling them that here's my hand, I'll help you. You know, but if you stand back and just, you know, say, well, maybe if they come back again or whatever, don't count that out. That's what I'm telling you. Make sure you understand what the code says about you as a social worker, because you have a major job to play and you have a major role to play. And Deja, you asked the question about how would you know, I think it was you or Tamira, how would you know if that person is in a domestic violence situation? If you work in an organization and that person has been referred to you, they are being referred to you because whatever reason. You know, you don't have to look at somebody and say, oh, I know that person is in a domestic violence situation. Sometimes if you're working in a hospital, the doctor will refer that person to you because he knows that that person is in a domestic violence situation. And therefore you are that person that's in place, that's set in that organization to help that person. So therefore you have to know what you are doing and know that, guess what? Your job is very important. You're a very important person if you are a social worker in an organization, because you are the professional. You are the person that is the subject matter expert when it comes to whatever, because you know that's why you're getting the teaching and the training that you need. When you graduate, you'll know some, but when you get out there in the real world working, understanding policies and company rules and that sort of thing, you'll learn more. And my hat's off to y'all being a social worker, and Chief, to you too, because as a team, we work as a team. Even no matter what organization you're in, if it's a prison, it's a team. It's doctors, nurses, police officers, social workers, chaplains. Everybody work together as a team, but you have to understand what your role is and play it professionally and by the book, because your license depend on it. Right, Charlotte? Your license depend on it. But thanks, ladies, for having me.
That was great. Thank you guys for coming on today.
I just
Did
want
you
to
have something
say
to say, Deja? Okay.
oh, go ahead, Deja.
Oh, I was just saying thank you guys so much for coming on and giving your insight in regards to the situation.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Thank you. And we wish you the best. We know you're going to do great.
Oh yeah, y'all gonna do
Thank
great.
you.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Miss Jennifer, for your service. All of y'all, Miss Charlotte, thank you so much. Y'all are in the trenches too. It's getting ready to be social workers. Y'all gonna go out here and y'all gonna see things that's gonna give you a different aspect on life. Well, one thing that I would tell you is never compromise your moral values.
That's right.
Always continue to believe in, you know, your God. Find your peace, because you're gonna it's gonna be days where it's gonna be stressed out. You're gonna feel attachment to your victim, and I'm telling you, it's not an easy job at all. You're not gonna get appreciated from people. They're not gonna say congratulations, you're doing a great job. So if you're in it for that reason, you're not gonna get it. But I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do. You're going to change and you're going to save lives.
That's right.
Now that's the truth right there. And how I know, no, I'm not a social worker, but I'm a chief of police. Like I said, but that's just my title. I've been a police officer. So I've been at the bottom. So I had people to come up to me and say, I did a great job, a bad job. I didn't look for any accommodation or any reward for serving. And y'all are servants. Y'all gonna be serving the community, serving the public, serving the people. As long as you do it until, I do it to God.
That's right.
That's what I live for. I live to do it to God. I'm not perfect by no means, but I say every day, Lord, help me, use me. And he does. He guide my steps. He guide my steps. And you know what I'm saying? And I just stay focused on him. And long as I stay focused on him, God rewards me. Who would have thought that after 7 years, and I'm finna be 40 years old, I'm the chief of police? I never would have thought. Never.
God be the glory.
It God be the glory. So it took someone saving my life. And y'all gonna go out there. Y'all are just as important as doctors, lawyers,
That's right.
police officers, pastors. Y'all gonna be everything wrapped up in one. You know what I'm saying? And you're gonna face life head on. But my point, what I'm trying to make is stay focused, trust in God, never compromise your moral values, always go by your code of ethics, and it's all gonna work out. Don't get discouraged. Stay focused. Stay focused and remain humble, and God will elevate you and help as many people as you can. Have compassion.
That's right.
Have compassion. That's the key word right there. And remember, you got to have grace and you got to have mercy for people as well. To do this job right here, you got to be selfless, not selfish. So thank y'all so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to y'all.
And I just want to add one thing. You, Chief hit on it. I mean, you have to pray every single day when you go as a social worker, no matter where you are, keep God first. Because I mean, even you going out on a call or whatever, you going to somebody's house, you don't know where you're going, depending on what kind of job you got. So that's the only way. Even in the military, I stayed alive is because of by God's grace and in prayer, because he said the fervent, effectual prayers of a righteous man availeth much. So pray and believe God that you're going to be a help to those clients that you come in contact with, and you will.
And I think that's one of the reasons why in this time, my children tell me all the time I preach to them. So I try to live the Bible and not let it come out of my mouth every time I open it. But sometimes I can't help it because that's what keeps me. And while we may refrain from really preaching and saying a lot of that, that is the key to it. And we know that's the foundation, like Chief said, of who we are. And that's a story for another day. Being the oldest of 12 children, I know how I made it to where I am. And so we say to you guys, I can remember, just when I was doing intern like you, and even though I had people who backed me up and stood there for me, I mean, this is such gold for you. Talking about women of refined gold, this is really gold for you to have people who have such experience to be able to share with you, to walk alongside you, and to help you. That means you're going to be 5, 10, 15 times better than we were. And you could beat the 3 of us and what we've been in. Hey, you got it. You got it. You got it. So again, to share, my hat's off to you and the undertaking you've taken for refined gold. You're doing an awesome job. But you haven't seen yet where God is taking you. So just stay steadfast, and like Chief said, stay focused, and anything we can do to help, we are here for you.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna say this, Ms. Moncrief, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
And ladies, I want to say this last thing to you also. Listen, when I say don't get discouraged from what you see, but also don't get discouraged from your employer. because you know what I'm saying, people, bullying is in the workplace is serious. You know what I'm saying? People they gonna knock you down, just like in school. You get knocked down because you make a bad grade on a report, or you didn't study long enough on a test. You didn't put your energy in it. Don't get discouraged. Just refocus. And when you refocus, you know what I'm saying, you concentrate, everything gonna be all right. And find you, and for me, since I done seen so much tragedy in my profession, I have to find a place. I found meditation and worship to get my peace. And so you may want to do that. Because I'm telling you now, you know, listening to Megan Thee Stallion and Gucci ain't gonna get it. I'm just gonna be honest. You know, they got some good music, but you know, listen to Megan Thee Stallion and the Honeybees or whatever. Beyonce.
Everybody ain't gonna become Beyonce.
That's what I'm saying. They ain't gonna get it now. So you find your perfect piece, and I'm gonna end with that right there.
That's good.
Good.
Well, thank you guys for coming out, and people that's watching. I hope you were educated on the things that we talked about today. You got a last words, Deja?
Thank y'all. I really enjoyed y'all today.
All right. Well, again, I thank everybody for just being a part of this conversation, for sharing your wisdom, for the interns, as well as sharing your wisdom for those who are going to watch this video. I do believe there's something that they're going to get out of it. I want to end by saying, if you or someone you know has been impacted by domestic violence, you can contact Women of Refined Gold at 334-877-7013, or you can visit our website at www.worginc.org, and you can contact us that way. We are here to educate, to empower, and to help end repeat victimization. I want to talk about, we are expanding our services, where we are working on a home that we will be providing shelter for women that are homeless due to domestic violence. We hope to have everything going by May, but we are taking referrals for individuals that may need that assistance. That has been a 7-year prayer for me, because sometimes getting people to walk out is not easy if you don't have a solution. And so God has opened a door that we were donated a home to the organization. And it was all, I remember a friend of mine told me something. And when the guy gave me the house, God said, remember your words. And I had spoke to my daughter, because I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing any much. And I said, I need someone to donate me a house. And she kind of looked at me like, okay. I'm like, serious, I need it. And then God reminded me of those words after the house was donated. And so we are definitely expanding our reach, expanding our services. So if you know anybody, please keep this information so that you can refer individuals for this home. We are working with Junior League right now. They are helping to decorate the home. If you want to donate to the home, if you want to be a sponsor toward the home, we welcome that, and you can contact us through the phone number or through the website. So again, we thank you all for your time. I don't take it lightly. I can talk about this topic all day. But I just thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us and our interns in making this a productive conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Guys.